Welcome to our deep dive on automatic Visa Revalidation, or AVR, and how some H-4 dependents consider it when extensions and EAD renewals are delayed. Today, we'll unpack what AVR is, why it's controversial, and how it fits into the high-pressure timeline when an H-4's I-94 and EAD are expiring, while the principal H-1B has a newly approved, longer status. We'll also cover safer alternatives, documentation, and practical steps, then test your understanding with short quizzes. To set expectations, this is an educational overview and not legal advice. With that said, let's map out our journey and then get into the core concepts. Here's today's roadmap. First, context and stakes. Second, what AVR is and how it is used. Third, the major risks and rules that make it controversial. Fourth, a comparison of premium processing versus AVR. Fifth, an eligibility checklist. Sixth, a step-by-step travel workflow. Seventh, we'll visualize the decision and the border interaction with diagrams. Eighth, a couple of quick quizzes to lock in key ideas. Finally, a concise summary and next steps. Now, let's set the scene and understand the pressure behind these decisions. The typical crunch looks like this. The H-1B principal has a newly approved petition with extended dates. But the H-4 dependents extension of status and EAD renewal lag behind. As the H-4, I-94, and EAD approach expiration, status and work authorization become uncertain. While some limited protections may apply in narrow circumstances, loss of employment authorization after the EAD expires is a core concern. Travel also becomes complicated when an H-4 visa stamp is expired. Under these pressures, some consider automatic visa revalidation as a last resort strategy to reset the I-94 upon re-entry. With the context established, let's define AVR and see why it's so controversial. Automatic visa revalidation is a narrow provision that permits certain non-immigrants, including H-4 dependents, to re-enter the United States after a brief trip, generally 30 days or less, to Canada, Mexico, or certain adjacent islands, excluding Cuba, even if their visa stamp is expired. In this scenario, applicants hope to do two things: avoid the need to obtain a new visa stamp while abroad, and secure a new I-94 upon re-entry that matches the principal H-1B's approved dates. However, AVR is controversial because it hinges on Customs and Border Protection officer discretion. If the officer is unfamiliar with AVR or unconvinced by the documentation, the traveler may face secondary inspection, delays, or even refusal of entry. If the traveler applies for a new visa while abroad, AVR is void, and a successful visa issuance becomes mandatory to return. With the definition clear, let's weigh AVR against a safer alternative: premium processing. Premium processing offers speed and predictability at a cost. It is a safer method to resolve H-4 extension delays without international travel. By contrast, AVR can immediately reset the I-94 upon return if successful, but it relies on CBP discretion and exposes travelers to the risk of secondary inspection, delays, or denial. Additionally, seeking a visa while abroad voids AVR and obligates you to wait for visa issuance. With this comparison in mind, let's identify who may qualify for AVR under the rules. Eligibility for AVR requires meticulous attention to rules. The trip must be 30 days or less. Travel must be confined to Canada, Mexico, or eligible adjacent islands, excluding Cuba. You cannot apply for a new visa while abroad. Doing so voids AVR. You must hold a valid, unexpired passport and evidence that you were previously in the same non-immigrant classification, such as H-4, which you can prove with prior I-94s, I-797 approvals, or expired visa stamps. Bring the principal spouse's original H-1B approval notice covering the intended period. Also carry receipts for your pending H-4 extension and EAD. Be aware that certain nationality-based restrictions can disqualify travelers from using AVR under the regulations. Finally, do not travel beyond the permitted regions during the trip. With eligibility in mind, let's turn these rules into practical do's and don'ts. Here are the do's and don'ts. Do carry your passport, expired visa stamp, I-94 printout, H-4 filing receipts, and the principal H-1B I-797. Don't rely on memory. Missing documents can derail re-entry. Do limit travel to 30 days or less within Canada, Mexico, or eligible adjacent islands. Don't exceed the time limit, or add other countries to the trip. Do avoid any visa application while abroad. Don't schedule a consular appointment. That voids AVR. Do be ready to explain AVR calmly, and bring printed references if needed. Don't argue with CBP or seem unprepared. Do check procedures at your intended port of entry. Don't assume every port applies AVR the same way. Finally, do consult qualified counsel before you travel, and don't treat AVR as a do-it-yourself solution. Now, let's walk through a practical step-by-step workflow if AVR is considered. If AVR is on the table, proceed methodically. First, consult qualified counsel to confirm your eligibility under the exact facts of your case. Second, assemble a document binder. Your passport, expired H-4 visa stamp, current I-94 printout, H-4 filing receipts, the principal's H-1B approval notice, proof of marriage, any relevant employment documentation, and your travel itinerary. Third, decide whether to use a land border or short flight, and research the specific port of entry's processes. Fourth, keep the trip under 30 days and restrict travel to the permitted regions. Fifth, do not apply for a visa while abroad. Sixth, upon return, present your documents proactively and reference AVR politely if asked. Seventh, verify the new I-94's end date at the counter and request a correction if it does not align with the principal's approved H-1B dates. Eighth, once admitted, save copies of the new I-94 and update your employer and immigration records. With the workflow clear, let's visualize the border interaction using a sequence diagram. This sequence diagram shows the practical flow. The traveler checks in with the airline, presenting a passport and an expired H-4 visa stamp. The airline assesses whether boarding is permissible on the basis of AVR for a short trip from Canada or Mexico. At the U.S. port of entry, the traveler first meets the CBP primary inspection officer and presents the passport, the expired visa stamp, an I-94 printout, H-4 receipts, and the principal's H-1B approval. If the primary officer has questions or is uncertain, the case may be sent to secondary inspection. In secondary, CBP reviews the AVR rules and documentation. The outcome can be approval with a new I-94 that aligns to the principal's H-1B approval dates, or refusal or deferral with administrative processing. Having seen the process, let's check your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: AVR generally allows re-entry to the United States after a trip of what maximum length and to which regions? Options: A. 60 days to any country. B. 30 days to Canada or Mexico or certain adjacent islands, excluding Cuba. C. 15 days to Europe only. Or D. 90 days to Canada only. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. 30 days to Canada or Mexico or certain adjacent islands, excluding Cuba. The short, geographically bounded trip is central to the AVR framework. Now that we have that confirmed, let's examine the key risks and pitfalls so you can gauge whether this is truly a last resort. The risks are significant. First, CBP discretion means outcomes vary by officer and by port of entry. Second, you could be sent to secondary and face administrative processing, which might leave you stranded abroad. Third, if you apply for a visa while outside the United States, AVR is void, and you must wait for visa issuance before returning. Fourth, for dependents, the desired I-94 alignment to the principal's approval requires the officer's understanding and acceptance of your documentation. Fifth, airlines do not uniformly understand AVR and may challenge boarding when a visa stamp is expired. Finally, there are nationality-based ineligibilities in the AVR rules. With the risks clear, let's place these decisions along a realistic timeline. This timeline illustrates typical sequencing. At filing, both H-1B and H-4 extensions are submitted. Shortly thereafter, the H-1B gets approved, while the H-4 and EAD remain pending. As months pass, the H-4, I-94, and EAD approach expiration, creating urgency. At this point, there is a decision fork. Upgrade the H-4 to premium processing, or attempt a short AVR trip of under 30 days to a permitted region. The premium path leads to a faster adjudication with reduced travel risk. The AVR path depends on CBP discretion at the border, with possible outcomes including a successful I-94 reset to the H-1B approval end date or referral to secondary inspection and potential denial. With the timeline in mind, let's reinforce a crucial rule with another quick quiz. Question: which action immediately voids AVR while you are abroad? Options: A. Printing your latest I-94. B. Visiting family in Canada for 7 days. C. Applying for a new visa at a U.S. consulate. Or D. Carrying your spouse's I-797 approval copy. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. If you apply for a new visa while abroad, AVR is void, and you must wait for the visa to be issued before you can return to the United States. With that key rule confirmed, let's make sure your documentation is airtight. Before attempting AVR, prepare a thorough documentation pack. Include a valid passport, your expired H-4 visa stamp or change of status approval demonstrating H-4 classification history, your latest I-94 printout, H-4 extension and EAD filing receipts, the principal spouse's original H-1B approval notice with appropriate validity, your marriage certificate and supporting relationship evidence, an employer letter or HR contact if relevant, printed regulatory references or CBP guidance excerpts regarding AVR, and proof of the short bounded trip such as itinerary, boarding passes, hotel reservations, or tickets. With your documents organized, let's capture the most essential points. The key takeaways are as follows. A VR can enable re-entry with an expired visa stamp after a short, bounded trip, but it is discretionary and risky. Premium processing is typically the safer and more predictable approach when it is available. If you intend to rely on AVR, do not apply for a visa while abroad. Bring thorough documentation that clearly links your H-4 status to the principal H-1B approval. Above all, consult qualified legal counsel before you travel. To close, we will provide a brief disclaimer and then summarize action steps. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration rules and policies can change, and AVR decisions depend critically on individual facts and officer discretion. Consult a qualified immigration attorney before making any travel or filing decisions. With that in mind, let's end with a concise summary you can use as a checklist. In summary, first confirm eligibility and consider premium processing as the primary option. If AVR is a true last resort, keep travel within the permitted regions for no more than 30 days. Do not apply for a visa while abroad. Carry a comprehensive documentation pack and verify your new I-94 date before you leave the inspection area. Throughout, consult legal counsel to minimize risk. Finally, here's a quick closing request to support the channel. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you navigate AVR and extension delays, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your biggest AVR questions in the comments, and your feedback helps us make better content. See you in the next episode.